So welcome to Hands-on with Jota. Today we are going to talk in regards to a very important topic, which is the word this. This in JavaScript was a very controversial word at some point. The main reason for this is because whenever you work with JavaScript, you're going to be using functions, and every time that you define a certain function, that function is going to define a certain scope. And there is someone who is going to be calling this function, and the caller of the function at the end is going to be who is this. But things change. Things were slightly different in those days. And if you find some of these things in your code when you're going to be working in regards to legacy code, then maybe some of the new practices are going to help you to take ahead a much better code or a lot more clean, easy way to maintain code than the one that was in those days. Let's go to the problem itself, right? So let's say that we define a class person with the construction name that's going to be just like this. Console log this.name. So here we have the person that gets a name, and that name is going to be the name of the instance of the person, and we're going to say name, and this say name is going to just make a console log of the name. So const p equal new person. And then we're going to say p dot say name, and it says Juan. Now we're going to say set timeout. We're going to define this class slightly different, just to make a bit more clear what I'm trying to say. We're going to console log this and this dot name. So we are going to console log not only the name but also this dot name, and then we're going to say const p equal new person, as we were doing, and now we're going to say set timeout, and then p dot say name. So we're going to basically what we're going to say is after 1 second give me the same name. So we see that name is an empty string, and window has this. So this is the value of this guy here. And the reason for this is because the color of the set timeout after a while is going to be just it's just going to be the window, and then we're not calling to the instance of p to get the name and make the console log of the name. So this is kind of problematic at some point, right? Because we want to say console log of this name, and this is the window, so this is not the one that I want to have here. So what can we do in regards to this one? Well, actually there are different options, and the old options were the following. In those days, the classes were defined as prototypes, and you can even see that nowadays some of these things, even though they have a little bit of different syntax, they are not so different. If I say name, and I define it like this, I will bind for the prototype say name. This is kind of nasty. I'm going to bind the same name to the instance p. So all of the different instances of the prototype person are going to be binded to this guy, to the p. This is really bad, because every time that we say p dot say name, it's going to say Juan. So if we say set timeout p dot say name, after 1 second, it is going to have the person Juan, and that's what we were looking for this particular case. But as you can see, I'm just binding the context, or I'm binding this to the function, redefining the prototype here, And this is one of the common use cases for many libraries out there, even for the latest trends, we can say. For example, I remember that if you have a React component in the old days, you were binding some of the different methods of the class to the scope that you were looking for in the construction of the class. Things change, and that's a very good thing. things get a bit more clear. Here is going to be all of the different instances are going to be calling to the same context, which is going to be this P. So even though I'm doing this comparison here, this is not even good, because if I create a new person, that's going to be saying always Juan, because it's always going to be bind to this P. So let's go ahead and let's try out something different. So to load the page, and I'm going to say the class, and instead of defining like this, I'm going to define like this. Right? And now I'm going to define like this, p.sayname is going to be Juan as before, but now we're going to say set timeout of p.sayname after 1 second. And now it will be Juan again. And the reason is because the translation of what you have here in regards to this method in this way is automatically binding the context of this into the instance of this class. So it's making this bind for you in a very handy way, we can say. So this is by many reasons one of the ways that things are being done nowadays. But does not mean that the way that was before was wrong, or it means that's just different. I mean, I know that sounds kind of weird, but let's suppose that you have certain library. I mean, right now this could be just creating a new instance of a person, and that's going to, we want this to be the name, right? So that's perfectly fine. But if you go for another kind of approach, for example, to express, and express is going to be just not express, I mean Mocha, for example, Mocha set timeout. Set timeout, you see, set timeout here. You have a very simple example. I guess this guy is going to be having the same situation here. Yes. So this is pretty old because it's using the done here. This is old enough, 2013, but it still has something that is being used nowadays. And the thing is the following: he's using a function here, and the function is going to be called by the framework of Mocha, and this, in the context of this function, is going to be the library of Mocha, and it's going to give you the timeout for this test. So if you use an arrow function in that case, it will not work because this is not going to be the library. I guess if we get here to the library itself, it's going to be a bit more clear than that example of 2013. But set timeout. Here is an example of this set timeout. So we can see that here is defining everything with this function, and the reason for that is because we need it to be a function, because we want to delegate this to the library itself, which is a different factor than just defining our own class person and taking control of our own things here, because we want to delegate that to the library. We want this to be Mocha and not to be the person, right? So it's different use cases. That doesn't mean that one thing is wrong, one thing is right. It's just that things are different. Another thing that comes in regards to functions and arrow functions, because this is called arrow function, is that in a function you can also define arguments. So if you say, for example, function, say hi, and I will print all the way arguments, right? And you say hi, and has here a call e, right? So I will put here something like 1, 2, 3, 4, hi, and you will have here 5 arguments, 1, 2, 3, 4, and hi. So this is another thing that comes with the function itself. If instead of this I do something slightly different, like saying, for example, const say hi to, I will define it like this. Arguments are not defined, and the reason is because you see these things are not defined in these arrow functions, so they are pretty much a bit more flat, we can say, at some point, right? That's arguments is not a function, so that's one of the things. And this is going to be conserved. So basically, the arrow functions are not defining a brand new scope for you in regards to this function, right? Which is a different situation than the function itself. So this is in regard to arrow functions and functions itself, in regard to this and the old ways that things were done and the new ways that things are done. And that some of the different things that comes from the old days, so at some point, not so much, thanks God, not so much, but you can still use some of these things, because I even saw one day that something says out there like it is a good practice or a shortcut to use a arrow function instead of a function. That's not entirely true. Actually, things are completely different, one thing from another, and in many ways. So my recommendation is to try to use these different tools in the way that they were meant to be, and take a look into these different things. For example, also function is being created considering the function with the big F, which is not that much of a cool guy, we can say at some point, but it comes with a lot of things there. For example, if you grab from here, say hi, it was not defined because I removed it. So let's say function say hi has a prototype, right? And comes with all of these different things, this prototype, right? While say hi to you see, you can call, you can bind, you can do some things here and there, but I don't see here's a proto. It has some native code there, but it's different guy than this one, right? There are two different kind of things that you can use here. So all in all, I think that this is pretty much a lot of content for today. I hope that you enjoyed. This is in regards to the word this, and the problems that you're going to be encountering if you go into legacy code is going to be in regards to this kind of scopes and who is going to be this. Sometimes in the past we also passed what was the scope. We were saying that self was equal to this, and then we passed the self to the inner function, so that there were some tricks there out there that were not so nice for debugging at the end of the story. So my intention is that if you hit some of these bugs or some of these problems, try to take them to the latest practices and try to do so not just by changing all the way everything to using this arrow function, but actually by paying attention and knowing that the arrow function and the function itself were created with two different meanings, right? So I don't know. I hope that this was a good session for you, and I hope that you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Have a good day and enjoy. Bye bye.